رابرت رضا اسعدی، دانش آموخته دانشگاه مینسوتا و مدرس دانشکده حکومتداری دانشگاه ایالتی پورتلند. او که در ژوئیه 2016 از رساله دکترای خود درباره برخورد نظم بین‌المللی با کشورهای به اصطلاح سرکش دفاع کرده است، در این مصاحبه از زمینه‌های شکل دهنده به سیاست خارجی دولت ترامپ در قبال ایران و احتمال درگیری دو کشور می‌گوید.
This recent escalation in Syria, I don't think it necessarily leads us to the conclusion that this will escalate then to a broader conflict in the region, or that U.S. involvement in Syria is somehow a testing ground for a bigger aggression against Iran. The travel ban reflects the broader strategic thinking that's been going on in U.S. foreign policy since at least the early 90s. After the end of the Cold War, the international system is not defined anymore by the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. And so now, generally, American foreign policymakers think of the world as defined by Western values, liberalism, democracy, human rights as they define it, and that any countries which offer another interpretation or which contest those norms, that they get isolated, and that by doing that, then they can compel them to change. Anytime there's a new administration coming in American politics, we can ask ourselves, what are the points of continuity with the past and where are the points of change? Well, we can look at the personnel that he's appointed. They're basically a reassertion of the neoconservative line of thought that we saw in the administration of George W. Bush, hearkening back to the unilateralism and the emphasis on hard power. They have not just in relation to Iran, but for most global issues. Second, the process of policy making itself is much different. So under the Obama administration, the emphasis was on trying to have predictability, trying to reduce uncertainty. The Trump administration, on the other hand, seems to thrive on and want to emphasize the element of surprise and the element of unpredictability. I wouldn't want to skip over the degree of continuity. One is that kind of mass public opinion in the United States vis-a-vis Iran has remained relatively stable, such stability that around 80% of Americans from around 1989 until the present respond to that question as unfavorable. I would suggest that's largely a legacy of the Islamic Revolution itself and the hostage crisis that followed. That had a deep psychological effect on many Americans in the same way perhaps that the events of the 1953 coup against the democratically elected government of Dr. Mossadegh had an influence on Iranians' perceptions of the British or of the United States and their involvement in Iran. The second point, and I think really the critical point, is that the challenges in the region confronting both Iran and the United States remain the same. Instability in Iraq and Syria, instability in Afghanistan as well. The rise of extremism that's equally problematic for Iran and the United States, as well as the huge refugee problem in the region. So there are many shared strategic interests between Iran and the United States, that some of those I've just outlined. The basic question is, can American foreign policymakers get beyond the idea that Iranian power is a problem, but instead that Iran is a power who can contribute to solving some of the problems in the region? You know, interestingly, it has happened between September 2001 and January 2002. We know there was cooperation between the United States and Iran in combating the Taliban. Can such a thing be developed moving forward? The early signs from the first 3 months of the Trump administration don't inspire confidence, but again, it may be too soon to tell, really. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.